very good evening and a warm welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us. We are coming to you from the Kampala Serena Conference Center, Choga Hall. And tonight our show is done in collaboration with the Strategic Initiative for Women in the Horn of Africa, SIHA, and the African Women's Development Fund. Tonight we'll be speaking about the invisible laborers. Now, every day when you're driving to work or you're driving back home or you're in a taxi, you are probably going to get to a point at the lights or something and a woman will come to you selling bananas, sim-sim, or maize or gum or anything. That woman has a story, and tonight that woman is our focus, the invisible laborer, the street vendor. Let's say it as it is. Once again, thank you for joining us. I'll quickly introduce my panel for this evening, and I'll start right there with you, Rose Bariam Tuma, who is the SIHA Network Program Advisor. Thank you for joining us, Rose.
You're welcome.
I'll go to you, Lorraine. Lorraine Karai is the Regional Projects Officer at SIHA Network. Thank you for joining us, Lorraine.
Welcome.
And finally, we have Molly Wambi, who is the Kawempe Women, comes from the Kawempe Women Vendors Cooperative Society Limited, and she was recently voted as the Secretary of Kampala Hawkers and Vendors Association. Welcome, Molly.
Thank you.
When we speak about the invisible laborer, women street vendors, what is your day like, Molly? What does your day look like?
I wake up in the morning. I have 3 kids. I take them to school, come back home. I prepare my journey to the market. I look for my mangoes because I sell mangoes. Then in the evening, I go to work on the street. I sell mangoes in Kawempe, Kutan. When I'm there, I face many challenges while working. First and foremost, there is this city council enforcement, KCC enforcement, disturbs me a lot because they say that I work illegally. They disturb me. Actually, sometimes they confiscate my goods. They take my merchandise. I suffer because of the capital. I go to banks, I get loans. When I get loans, I buy the mangoes. KCCA takes them. I end up crying the whole day. Where will I get the money to pay the loan?
Molly, how did you come to be a street vendor?
I became a street vendor being stranded. I have no one to help me. So the only thing I had to do is to go to the street and get something to do because I have no all that money to go to arcades or to shops. So the only thing I had to do is to go to the street because it's the affordable thing. It requires it requires not too much money
To start.
Because I started with 50,000.
How long have you been doing this?
It's like 5 years.
5 years now, and you have 3 children, and it puts the children in school. Okay. Lorraine, when we say we want to give the street vendors a human face, what do we mean? I guess when we see them on the street, you don't know their name, you're not really thinking about them, you just say the banana, lady or the one with the sim-sim. Beyond looking at them like that, what don't we know about them? Why should we care? Everybody has their hustle.
Thank you, Josephine. I'll first start by talking about the organization that reached out to street vendors in Uganda. The Strategic Initiative for Women in the Horn, SIHA Network, focuses on working with urban poor women, and it's because we feel that not many organizations or the women's movement across the Horn of Africa where we work are not prioritizing urban poor women. And in 2012, we thought it was quite critical that we start to engage with street vendors, women street vendors particularly. And it's because we feel they are human beings like any other woman that deserve dignity. These are women that are working in an informal economy that is not regulated, and it has subjected them to a lot of abuse, a lot of violations, and many people are not listening to their plea. So we felt as women activists, as feminists across the Horn of Africa, it was quite critical that we start to empower these women, work with them, understand their issues. And one of the things we've done is a research that is called the Invisible Laborers of Kampala, where we followed some of the street vendors, 100 street vendors, to understand what their issues are, what their challenges are. And we realized that many people treat them as less of human beings. They might be called the lady selling mangoes, or the lady selling maize, kasoli, the lady selling sweet potatoes. But these are women that are struggling to make a livelihood for their families. And many of them are widows. Many of them have orphan children they are looking after. Many of them are unemployed, not because they have not tried to look for work, but it's because many times people feel that, women's place is in the home. And if they want to get out of the home and look for a way of earning money,
this is the only way.
The only alternatives that have been provided are street vending, where they are faced with so many violations.
Rose, what challenges are unique to these women that women in other sectors are not facing?
Thank you, Josephine. I think calling them invisible, we are not talking about the physical invisibility. We are talking about invisibility in terms of policy, in terms of plans, and in terms of protection generally. Their problems span a number of platforms. Forget the physical tenacity that is involved in their work, walking from Nakawa to Wandegea, looking sometimes for one or two clients that will buy from her. The harsh climate, they don't have a workstation that is permanent.
If it rains, they're not going to work.
If it rains, the challenges you have might force you to work not the way you would have wanted to, but because you have kids at home that are expecting a meal at the end of the day. They have challenges that also will be health related. They are walking, there are not so many public toilets in Kampala, and we all know that keeping your bladder full for a long time, particularly a woman, will increase your risks of getting UTIs, urinary tract infections. But that will again bring more challenges. She's sick, but she has to persist and work. If she's to go to a health facility, you know how our health facilities work, it's an entire day. So you'll have to make a choice. Do I go to a health facility? Do I stay and work? In which case, you are increasing the challenges. You're overworking your body when you're not feeling well.
Molly spoke about some other challenges earlier. She said sometimes the law enforcers come pick them up, take their merchandise. We had the case of the woman who died in a trench a couple of years ago. We see them get picked up and thrown on trucks like sacks of potatoes. What is the plan? What is the plan for them? What would you like to see, Molly?
What I wanted to see is that the government, let it legalize our work. Let them provide us with a license. We are ready to pay it, but not too high because we earn little, so that we can work legally.
What does too high look like? If you're willing to pay, what would you say speaking for the other women that you work with, and you are recently voted as the secretary of the Kampala Hawkers and Vendors Association, so you can speak for them. What does enough, money to pay but still leaves money in your pocket look like?
It would have been better for the license to be like 40,000 per year.
Okay.
Because you have to pay our rent. We are renting. We have to pay school fees for our kids. Then that will be fair for us.
Recently, the street vendors were designated to Wandegea Market and Usafi markets, right? For their own safety and I guess also to give some order to the city. Where are the gaps in that relocation? What's the problem there?
The problem is going to those markets like Wandegea, paying that 10,000 a day for you to get a place to work in. It's too much for us.
And also the other challenge is that while they were relocated to these markets, these are storied buildings, and street vendor will be given space at the top most space that is available. She's paying 10,000 a day. That probably was her startup capital. She's not even able to attract the customers that she would otherwise get. So it is just not working for women street vendors, because the reason they've gone to the streets is because they are hoping that they'll be able to get that profit of 1,000 shillings, 2,000 shillings, even a day, to be able to put food on the table and make some savings to be able to pay for education for their children. So that did not work for the street vendors that we engaged with, and many of them are proposing that while Kampala City Council Authority and the different city authorities, the municipals, are planning to have organized and designated places for these women, they need to be in discussions. They need to be part of the table of discussing where the designated places should be, because when they are put aside and they are not part of the decision making, then some of the decisions don't work for them.
The people making the decisions have never been street vendors.
Exactly, Josephine. They do not know what it means to walk a distance that is close to Kampala to Mukono and back, because this is what the street vendors do. We have the ordinance that is proposing designated places for them to work, but this then takes away the fact that they can be able to look for customers to be able to sell them.
Also, looking at the merchandise they have, it's not merchandise you're going to put in a shop and and wait for someone to come all day. Molly, how long do you walk in a day? Would you know? Where do you walk from to where?
I walk from Kawempe to Bwaise.
So you're walking the street the whole day to and fro?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's take a short break and we'll be right back to engage our audience. And the composition of our audience, we're hoping we'll get some answers by the people that are there. Let's take a break. Welcome back. We're coming to you from the Kampala Serena Conference Center, Choga Hall, and tonight we are speaking to and about the invisible laborers, the women vendors of Kampala and beyond. Let's turn to our studio audience, who I assume has been listening. So I don't know if you have comments or questions for our panelists or comments about what they've said. We'll start with you, Mayor Balimwezo.
Yes, we are aware that the legal regime currently does not favor the street hawkers and vendors, because we have two categories of people. We have the hawkers and the street vendors. These do different work. A vendor sits down on the street and works along the street in a stationed place. And a hawker will have to move, hawking, moving around, trying to look for customers. Yes, we have the Trade Licensing Act that is not so clear on permission. So the authority may or may not give them a permit. Therefore, when KCCA was created, they stopped giving permits to vendors and hawkers. And now that we have a challenge of employment, we have a challenge of lack of monies to put in place markets, we have tried to basically organize laws that are going to help us work on the works of the hawkers and vendors. To date, we are getting views from the hawkers, and I want to thank SIHA for that, because at least we have had about 3 meetings of hawkers and vendors to get views of the vendors so that we can make a law that is favorable to them. But we have also gone down to see that we address issues from the roots, because tomorrow that lady there is not going to be a hawker. She'll be old that she cannot move long distances. So I want to thank some organizers that have brought on board women hawkers to begin the training in vocation skills. To date, as I speak, I'm looking for about 100 hawkers to have them trained in vocation skills. For example, tailoring, baking, and so on, so that when tomorrow she gets old, she has something that she can do. We have also
I'm sorry, you said you're looking for 100 vendors.
100.
You're
women.
looking for them,
yes,
so they can reach out to you.
So you can reach out to us.
Okay.
We recently trained over 600 in MTAC. So we still need more lady hawkers to come and attain such programs so that they can be able to sustain themselves in the future. We have also tried to address the issue of markets. Currently, in Nakawa, we are constructing Chititale market that is going to take on quite a number of women, because we cannot accept everyone to be a hawker in the city. You know, so you'll find that people come from Kumi to come and take on this position. So we are trying to make a law that will basically regulate the operations of hawkers within the city. We have also graded some areas.
Maybe before you go on, you were speaking about markets, and one of the issues she raised, or they raised, was that there's Usafi market already, there's Wandegea market, and these are not working. So it doesn't seem like a solution that they find viable for the kind of goods that they hawk or vend.
No, it is a solution, believe me you. If we had markets in every parish, that would be a solution. Secondly, the design of markets was not favorable for them, but now we are designing markets that basically are traditional in nature, that someone can view and sees what exactly he wants to buy alongside the road. Because currently, as we speak, Wandegea, you cannot see the merchandise. Therefore, you cannot attract customers to come to you. The reason we have now come back to design traditional markets is to address the issue that they have.
Thank you very much, Engineer Balimwezo. I think one of the other issues, even as you address what they've spoken about, is usually I see a lot of these women, especially with babies on their backs. So these children cannot be left out of the conversation that we are having about, women on the street. What happens to these children?
Yeah, so what we've seen happening is because women cannot leave the babies at home.
Definitely.
These are urban poor women, and when I mean urban poor women, these are the very impoverished women who cannot afford a daycare, a nanny or a babysitter, and they have to move in the scorching sun, in the rain, to be able to earn a living. And what we've seen happening is, as the Honorable Mayor has mentioned, because the sector is not well regulated, many of these women are arrested, and much of their merchandise is confiscated, and in the process some of them are escaping the arrests. And there have been instances where the enforcement authorities have thrown these women on trucks
with a baby on the back,
and women have broken their hands, their legs, they've lost their merchandise, and sometimes the merchandise is got on credit.
What happens to the baby? What is the plan for the children?
Now that is what we are hoping the policymakers can start thinking about and discussing. As you mentioned, many of the people that are making decisions have never been vendors, and they don't understand what it means to be a vendor and moving around with a child or an infant. So these are some of the conversations, and we as SIHA Network have been able to support the women vendors come together through cooperatives, because as the mayor mentioned, we've been able to try and facilitate meetings between policymakers and the cooperatives for them to be able to raise their issues as vendors and be able to see how they can follow through.
All right, let's take some more comments from the audience.
I want to thank Molly for your contribution for the plight that our women vendors go through. But as policymakers, I want to just try to look at a few areas. The mayor has already mentioned the legal, gaps that are there, and we appreciate, Mayor, what you've already stated, giving the fact that there are gaps, and these gaps need to be addressed by us leaders by listening and talking to these women vendors. Even the male vendors, maybe, but for today we are concentrating on
in the
on
month
the
of March, we shall concentrate on
women. Yes.
we shall be selfish.
Yes, I just want to pick one point about the inadequacy of capital. Molly talked about inadequacy of capital is one reason why she took on to vending, other than going to be a settled somebody in the market, because the capital was not enough. What is government doing about that? There are a number of programs that the government has put in place purposely to support women. We talk about, first maybe before going to the programs, we have structures. We have the Women Council in place, right from the village up to the national level. And I think this should be one area or point where the women vendors should have their issues addressed in conjunction with SIA. You should be, you said, you are left out, you are not brought on board when it comes to decision making. But I want to encourage you to use the existing structure. They are the women council leaders. We have women councillors. Please take your issues there so that I can take it to council. That is one. But I want to encourage the leadership of Kampala and any other ban authority to really look to these issues. You cannot come up with a good policy, with a good law, without listening to the people. We must listen to the women vendors. That is one. But what are the deliberate government programs that are in place that can help address the issue of capital inadequacy? We have the program of UWEP, Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program or Fund. It is there in place. Please, Molly, encourage your circle, your cooperative that you have started in Kawempe, that you go to the division and try to ask how much funds is available for your women to be able to access. But work with your women council again. The government again.
Just before you move on from that one, is it that you're not aware of what is available? Is it an awareness issue, or is it access again?
We've ever tried the UWEP, but they kept us moving tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, and we got tired of it.
Yes, I want to advise you to use your leaders, and I want to call upon all leaders at all levels out there that please let us work with these women who are trying to fend for their life, to fend for their family, so that they are able to access this good government program. Again, on the issue of inadequacy of capital, I think the government has again put a very conducive situation in Uganda where we have a number of microfinance institutions thriving almost all over Kampala, all over most urban areas. We as leaders, we should be able to guide, we should be able to sensitize our women where they can find affordable credit to be able to add on their capital. But a caution for the law enforcement people in the urban authorities. Somebody mentioned that we've never been vendors, but we have also come from very far. We live with these people. These are our aunties, these are our sisters, these are our brothers. We know, we may not have been vendors as such, but we know we are actually their customers. Because of challenges of parking, Mayor, you find that sometimes instead of going to park somewhere and they're going to remove my car, whatever, I decide to just buy these mangoes as, I'm in traffic jam. So we know the plight of these people. We may not have participated in the business, but we know. So I want to encourage that. Let there be proper parking space, first of all, for us customers to be able to access markets with confidence. We need to redesign the markets. For instance, when you go to Nakasero, it's a nightmare. If we redesign that market and the KCA build underground parking, maybe there will be more space for parking, so that for the women who may have the capital, but also fear that, you know, if I go to the market, I may not see 10 customers at the end of the day. They will have hope that, yes, they can come because they're able to park. Even us will have confidence that, yes, my vehicle is safe, everything is safe, I can move in the market. Another thing I want to call upon us leaders and government is sanitation. Issue of sanitation. These are women, and women are different from men. Leave alone the garbage. I'm not talking about the garbage only. What about if a woman is in her periods? Are there changing rooms for them? How clean are those toilets?
Are there toilets in the first place?
Are they there? Mayor, you are here. I think you'll provide that answer. Do we have changing places for women? Do we have bathrooms where a woman can go and clean up quickly after picking merchandise from Usafi or Wino and coming to Nakasero Market? Do we have them? You talked about children.
There's a point, actually, when you go to children, there's a point at which they had said women should not come with their children to markets. And I think NTV did a story on that. So you're not allowed to come with your child because they're afraid the child will fall in your cooking oil or, you know, run onto the road or something. But what is the provision then?
I don't support that. You see, we are women. It's very hard to separate a woman from her child. Even as working women, after your 3 months of maternity leave, you go back to office, but 3/4 of your heart is at home. What about this one who cannot afford a maid? So we need still more space in those markets. We need space. And that is the challenge, is the vendors I see. Somebody with a child from day one is growing on the street. What do you expect that child to be? No wonder we are having, in Mutungu, where I live, Mayor, you know it, how we are losing people at the hands of funny people who are hitting them day and night. Because sometimes of their background. Where did they grow up? On the streets. We have that problem. And we must address it as leaders, together, collectively, by listening and keeping our eyes open. We may not have the opportunity to meet with these women like we are meeting today, but as you move as a leader, you must be sensitive to what is around you.
Just a quick question, because...
But about the issue of children, recently I attended, there's one member that is bringing up a bill on Employment Amendment Act, and we are advocating for, Parliament has created a space for where mothers who are breastfeeding, there's space.
Parliament.
I think KCCA, other urban authorities should follow suit.
Okay.
Let there be a feeding room for these women vendors in the market. Not just a changing room, but whereby, because I can't afford everything, I can't afford a maid, I can't afford accommodation, at least let me work with a settled mind that, you know, after every 10 minutes I can check on my child.
Okay. All right. Well, just before we take a break, because our time is fast spent, just by show of hands, how many vendors or hawkers are here that have children and go with them to the street? By show of hands? None. Okay. How many of the women in this room have tried to get money or a loan from microfinance institutions? How easy was it? All right. Let's take a short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. We're coming to you from the Kampala Serena Conference Center, Choga Hall, and we're having a conversation on the invisible workers, the street vendors and hawkers, the women, in the month of March. We would like to hear from the Member of Parliament from Mitoma District, who is here with us. Please, what are your thoughts on the conversation we've been having?
They say that a problem shared is a problem half solved. So we want to thank you so much for bringing these issues. Secondly, I want to thank the government, because already there is an ordinance that that recommends that there should be places for the vendors. Yes, usafi and wandegeya may not be suitable, but at least the fact that they were designated, it is a beginning where we can now say, no, these are not suitable, so we need proper ones. I want to thank the mayor and his colleagues who are trying to ensure that there are bylaws in place to address this problem, and that there will be markets or places for vendors which are accessible. I think that is the issue, that there should be designated places and that they are easily accessible, so that one does not have to walk from Kawempe to Waise or to Kampala, but that you can sell your goods near your home, and so you are comfortable. Then these issues of, there was the issue of not having sufficient funds to pay the fees, the daily fees. I think that one we can look into to ensure that the fees that are paid are commensurate with the work that you do, so that you don't have to pay as high as those who pay in the markets. So in other words, to make it affordable, accessible and affordable.
Molly's suggestion on that is 40,000 shillings a month, a year, as opposed to the 10,000 every day, which comes to over what?
That one needs to be studied. It is a proposal that
the mayor is already shaking his head. He has dismissed it.
The mayor may not have the figures at hand, so certainly 10,000 a day is too high. So that's why I'm saying that they should look into it, and we are going to make sure that it is affordable. Then also we must be aware that it is very important to be law abiding. Yes, we know the challenges that the women face, but we need to be law abiding, to ensure that we operate within the law. That's why it is important that we revise the law, so that the law addresses the needs of these people. Because if the law says go to the markets, and for you are on the streets, we have seen people running. We have seen, as someone said, a vendor being thrown on the pickup and all that. So to operate within the law, but also for the law enforcers also to operate within the law, because throwing someone on the pickup is not legal. So I think this one we will take up with the, I think Parliament has had an occasion to do this, to take up with the KCCA and the police, that as you are enforcing the law, be human, for goodness sake. But what I wanted to say is that, yes, we appreciate the challenges, but it is important to operate within the law. The issue of children. This is why it is necessary to have officially designated places, so that we can have the necessary facilities. We can have nurseries within those markets or those open spaces, and we can have the toilet facilities. But for as long as you are on the street, hawking, it is very difficult to put in place facilities for you. So dear ladies, I hope that when eventually government puts these facilities in place, you'll be able to utilize them, rather than say, me, I'm a vendor, and I am a hawker, and I must remain a hawker. The other issue is the issue of cleanliness. We hope that when they are put in place, they are put in place at a cost that they can afford. Because there's putting them in place, they have to pay for the nannies. No, they'll have to be affordable. Okay. Then that we must, all of us, make sure that we fight to keep our environment clean. So if you let people just move anyhow, selling wares and dropping these buveras, I'm sure you all know the state of Kampala and how it has even been, I don't think I should even repeat it here. It is dangerous that we even fear buying these foodstuffs from the vendors because of the fear of the state of hygiene. It is to your advantage if we keep the environment clean so that people buy your foodstuffs and wares without second thoughts.
All right.
So thank you very much. It is very important that we keep our cities clean. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll just hear from one more person on this side, then we can hear from a street vendor and wrap up. I hope we'll have the time. Yes, Isabella.
First of all, I'd like to salute every street vendor who is here with us today. As we celebrate this International Women's Day, the theme is around each for equal. So each woman or each citizen ensuring that the next person is equal or that the next woman is equal. It's also around ensuring that inequalities are dealt with. And when we talk about inequalities, how much more inequality can we talk about if someone is as invisible as the laborers that we are celebrating today? I work at Farmport, Uganda, and we've had the privilege of working with some of the street vendors. And so my submissions are really around that. And I must confess that very many of us didn't realize how much we were perpetuating this invisibility, probably because of information gaps and maybe because of not caring enough. But that notwithstanding, interactions with them have shown, you asked a question earlier about what are the challenges that they face that are different from the challenges that the other woman faces. I think the street vendor faces almost the same challenges as the next woman. The question is the extent to which she's more susceptible to that challenge. So one of the things that we discovered during our conversations with them was the rampant sexual harassment, which was already bad as it is, but more heartbreaking was the fact that very many of them didn't consider it an issue. It was that it happened, yes, it happened, but I can't do much about the fact that it happened, which was quite heartbreaking.
I have bigger problems.
So, yes?
It feels like they have bigger problems.
Yes, they have much bigger problems. We were told of a story of one of the street vendors who was given a lift by a border man and then abused so grossly at golf course. She couldn't walk. And so, yes, that is what, that's part of what they have to deal with every day. When we talk about early childhood in Uganda, and we know that a child develops in the first 6 months are very crucial. So imagine the generation that we are raising that is whose first 6 months are on the back, under the scorching sun in Kampala, inhaling all the dust that the world could throw at them. It is no wonder that we probably have higher levels of mental illness, and it might worsen as time goes on if we don't address some of these realities. And so as a sector, one of the things that we committed to, especially that is the women's organizations, was one, to create safer spaces for these women. Because we told them, where do you go to when you have these issues? And they say, no, you go home, you cry, you wake up the next day and continue with life. Work. And so at least the institution I'm working for is creating spaces. We told them, come at any time. You don't have to carry this burden. But we also have institutions like the Women's Pro Bono Initiative that through this interaction has taken on cases of some of the women, because there are issues of property rights, there's issues of abuse in there. And so more and more organizations are coming out and saying, we are willing to help you. Of course, the bigger challenge is the issue of getting the information that there is help out there to the vendors, given the nature of their work. But we hope that the flow of information can improve and that we can all begin to contribute towards making them more visible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Isabella. I wanted to, one of the women in the room, if you could just send the microphone forward. During the break, she said she has a child that she's been with on the street. If she could speak to us in Luganda, which she's more comfortable with, and just share her experience briefly.
Ekibuzo ekimbuziddwa ekiseera we nakolera ku street n'omwana, ekiseera ekyo kale nakolerako nga ndi lubuto, nali maliriza nga njiiza ne ngamba akanfune wentuula nemenga kutambula, nefuna wentuula nga nkola lwaggulo, naye kati ate nali lubuto by then, nenzaala ngenda okuzaala nazaala balongo, naye nga nalina boxi nga mbateekamu boxi ezaawo. ne babeera nga okumpi nange kati ne bagenda nga bakula mpolampola nga bwe batambula ate olina okulabirira abaana ate n'otunda kale ne bibeera nga tebyali byangu nnyo kati ne kibeera nti nno nti omuntu ddala olina kubaawo kasita ofuuka single mother olina okulaba nti obeerawo mu bulungi ne mu bubi naye lwakuba sitekansi etuyisa bubi nejja neeyoola ebintu byo kati ebitutte olina abaana ate bino obyagala kati ne weesanga mu mbeera nga si nnungi naye ekyamazima batufunira obudde bwe tukoleramu ogambe nti nno ddala buno bwe budde oba license kijja kutuyamba nnyo kubanga ekyamazima tetusobola kusasula bizimbe ebyo.
Thank you very much. I think one of the concerns, and now coming from an angle where we hear all of these stories of women with children on the street, the thought in a lot of people's minds is that these children were just brought to get sympathy. So the stories of the actual mothers with children on the street get lost in that conversation.
Noise,
so
yes.
I want us to wrap up very quickly. I'll give each of you a minute just to say something, and I will start with you, Rose.
I will just take some seconds to follow up on what the Honourable Member from Pakwach has talked about, access to funds. You talked about UOP. I think it is also important that as government puts in place these funds and these structures, there is a follow-up on who exactly is accessing. As they've told you, they've tried many times and they are not going. And we know that the funds are there. They are being distributed. But who is getting the funds? It's important to follow up. Lastly, as we celebrate Women's Day and the theme that my sister has already talked about, let's not forget about all the women and celebrate the milestones that reflect everyone, not the 1% or 2% that are some good places and are represented at that level.
Thank you, Rose. Lauren, 1 minute.
Yeah, so I just wanted to appreciate the role of the different government actors that have been able to recognize that women street vendors matter. And this is the same light that we as SIHA Network are hoping other policymakers can be able to work around, because these are women that not many people have considered as human beings, and we feel they deserve dignity and respect, and they need social protection. So as SIHA Network, we are hoping that we'll continue to support the women street vendors to be able to raise their issues for better protection.
All right. Molly, I'll finish with you. What would you like to see as we close?
What I would like to see, this goes to the government, especially to those people who sexually harass women. Please, government, you put that law in, the law against women sexually harassed in place, and it works. Because when you go to police, they will ask you, how has he done? How will I show them?
Do you have these kinds of policies and conversations in your groups?
Yes, we actually do.
What do you tell the women?
I actually tell my fellow women to have self-defense, because when someone comes to you, grabs you, you have to defend yourself. It's the only thing. Afterwards, then you go to police. Police will ask many things, which will not be able to answer.
I see the Member of Parliament wants to say something, but we don't have time. Isabella, you guys need to start thinking about self-defense for these women on the street, even as you go and you're visiting.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on this dialogue. And also let me take the opportunity to wish you all a happy International Women's Day. Just to say that Parliament is working on this, on the sexual harassment, because there is the sexual offences bill which is on the table, and we are going to pass it, and we've been working with the government departments, the police and all that, to make sure that it will be implemented, that you will no longer face those challenges. Lastly, my dearest sisters, let us keep our hopes up. The situation we are in today is not going to last forever. And government is doing so much about improving the conditions. So we've come from very far. That's why we should be proud as Ugandans and Ugandan women in celebrating International Women's Day. We have achieved a lot. There is still a lot to be done, but we are somewhere and we are going somewhere, all for the betterment of the mothers of this nation.
Thank you very
so
much, Honorable. Close up. What were you saying? Just close up very quickly.
What I want the policymakers to engage us while you're making the laws. It's the only thing, because you cannot know what pains us. Eh? You have to engage us while you're making the laws, which will be favorable to us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Rose. And thank you for all of you who have participated in this conversation. That brings us to the end of our show for tonight. Coming up is NTV Weekend Edition. Keep it NTV.